This show is a part of the podcast network of the Walled Garden Philosophical Society, an international community of philosophers and seekers dedicated to the pursuit of truth, wisdom, virtue, and the divine, wherever they may be found. To find out more, go to thewalledgarden.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Searching with Seneca. Now today I'm going to be focusing on the first couple of verses of letter number 16. And you should know that I've actually done a deep dive into this entire letter with Steve Carafit from the Sunday Stoic podcast. And so you can find that on my podcast, The Practical Stoic, or you can find that on YouTube. And so if you do want that deep dive into the entire letter, awesome, go listen to that. I had a great conversation with him. However, I just love this letter and I'd like to go through again because the lessons within this letter, you can never remind yourself of them too often. And so I'm going to go through again, and we're going to start with just the first couple of verses of this letter, number 16, on philosophy, the guide of life. So I'll read these two verses and we'll see where we find ourselves. He says, quote, "It is clear to you, I'm sure, Lucilius, that no man can live a happy life, or even a supportable life, without the study of wisdom. You know also that a happy life is reached when our wisdom is brought to completion, but that life is at least endurable when our wisdom is only begun. This idea, however, clear though it is, must be strengthened and implanted more deeply by daily reflection. It is more important for you to keep the resolutions you have already made than to go on and make noble ones. You must persevere, must develop new strength by a continuous study, until that which is only a good inclination becomes a good settled purpose. Hence, you no longer need to come to me with much talk and protestations. I know that you have made great progress. I understand the feelings which prompt your words. They are not feigned or specious words. Nevertheless, I shall tell you what I think, that at present I have hopes for you, but not yet perfect trust. And I wish that you would adopt the same attitude towards yourself. There is no reason why you should put confidence in yourself too quickly and readily. Examine yourself, scrutinize and observe yourself in divers ways, but mark before else whether it is philosophy or merely in life itself that you have made progress." End quote. All right, so Seneca makes some really important points in these couple of verses, and I want to go back to the very start where he kind of makes that proposition, right, which is that no man can live a happy life or even a supportable life without the study of wisdom. And this is a really tough one to talk about because it's kind of a wild proposition, right? It's like nobody can live a happy life unless they study wisdom or unless they have wisdom. And I've been thinking about how I would talk about this idea because a lot of people might say, okay, well, how do you know? How do you know that I'm not perfectly satisfied and contented with my life, even though I've never, studied wisdom in my life? And I don't know if that's true for them. I don't know how much flourishing they experience in their life, how much joy they experience in their life. And I can only speak from experience, having studied philosophy and wisdom for quite some time now. I can only speak from experience and say that I have certainly seen incredible results in my life in terms of the way that I feel, in terms of the way that I see the world around me, and in terms of the way that I experience life. I have experienced massive differences from when I had not, started my study of these topics to when I have, now a few years in, spent a good deal of time diving deep into them. And I know the difference that I've seen in my own life, but I don't know if you can necessarily convince somebody of that unless they're willing to get in there and get dirty and start studying and start really trying to figure out these answers for themselves. I think that this is something that you have to experience for yourself before you understand it, not be convinced that it is true. And even if you were convinced that it would be true, that still makes no difference because you still need to get in there and do the work, right? But one thing that I have been thinking about is I think we need to link this idea idea to something that Heraclitus said. Heraclitus, the pre-Socratic philosopher who very much influenced Stoicism and many other philosophies. But one of the things that he talked about, and we're all very familiar with this sentiment, is that life is kind of like a river, and the river is always changing, and you are always changing, right? And so the river that you step in now is different now, and now it's different again, and now it's different again. And this idea kind of relates to the kind of lot that we are dealt in our lives, right? Because the world is constantly changing around us. It is always in a state of flux, right? And so are you. You know, you think about who you were yesterday and the day before, and then the year before, and 10 years before. You know, we are constantly changing, and as we get older, we go into different seasons of our lives, right? So there's things that relate between all of humanity, but also there's the individual nature of each individual person, right? And so we are always in this state of flux, and wisdom, you know, true wisdom is the thing that allows you to find firm footing, a firm foundation, and a straight and narrow path amidst the chaos and the flux of life, right? When everything is changing around us, what is the thing that we can grab onto and find a sustaining help and guidance throughout this flux of life? That is wisdom. And so you can see how if you studied wisdom, and if you really understood what wisdom is and what it means to be wise, then you would have an understanding of how to flourish amid a world and a person who you are, who is constantly in that state of flux and change. And that is absolutely invaluable knowledge. And that's what philosophy is. It is being a lover of wisdom. It's a seeker of wisdom, right? That stuff that is in common among all things that can allow you to find that firm footing, that firm foundation in your life, something which you can actually rely upon no matter what changes in your life. And so, going back to the text, Seneca gives another interesting idea here where he says that you know also that a happy life is reached when our wisdom is brought to completion, but life is at least endurable when our wisdom is only begun. So there's another kind of crazy proposition, right? Which is that your wisdom can be brought to completion, that there's almost a destination that you arrive at when you're studying wisdom, where you have gained a true understanding. And it's almost as if there's a key, right? You need to grab that key. And once you have that key, you can open the doors that you need to in order to gain the wisdom that you need at any one moment. But you need to get to that point. That's what we're all aiming at, is getting to that destination of being wise. And that's a really interesting idea that we could think about for a very long time. But I also think about something else that Heraclitus said here when he said that the oneness of all wisdom can be known under the name of God, right? And so that's another really interesting idea here, that potentially what we're aiming at here when it comes to true wisdom is to arrive at this place where we identify ourselves with the biggest possible thing that we are a part of. You know, we can think about the kind of Stoic idea of the kind of hierarchical nature, the web of the cosmos, right, where everything relates to each other and everything serves something higher and is served by something lower, right? And this all relates to this idea of us living within this cosmos where we are trying to figure out how can we gain not just the wisdom of a person, but the wisdom of the cosmos that we are a part of. And that's that kind of feeling of being at home within the world that you're living in, within the cosmos that we are a part of, because you know that you are a part of this giant thing that is just happening all around you, and that you too, like everything else that flourishes on this earth, you too have access to the understanding and the wisdom of the whole, right? And so I know that I'm only skimming the surface of all of these giant ideas that deserve hours upon hours of analysis and proper discovery, but I'm really excited to continue bringing these ideas up as we we go through these letters, because Seneca was highly influenced by Heraclitus, and we do find those influences coming through in terms of that destination of wisdom, the oneness of all wisdom being known as, whether it's universal reason, whether it's the cosmos, whether it's God, whether it's the world's soul. It's it doesn't matter what you call it. Ultimately, it's we're trying to find our way to the wisdom of the whole, of the biggest thing that we are a part of. And that's a hero's journey, if anything. So anyway, Seneca goes on to say that this idea, however clear though it is, must be strengthened and implanted more deeply by daily reflection. It is more important for you to keep the resolutions you have already made than to go on and make noble ones. You must persevere, must develop new strength by continuous study, until that which is only a good inclination becomes a good settled purpose. And this is another kind of idea that I can really only give my personal experience for, and ask you to take that same kind of path, right? Because it certainly has been the case for me that what started with a basic interest in these books, in these philosophers, right? A basic inclination towards gaining a little bit of a deeper wisdom for my life, as I have gone deeper and deeper, and as I have dedicated myself more to this study, it has solidified within me, as a true purpose for my life to try and gain deeper wisdom constantly. And you can almost get addicted to it, right? It's like you start to see just how amazing these changes can be when yesterday you saw the world in one way, and then a new set of words, a new sentence, a new paragraph switched on a light in your mind, right? And now you see the world in a completely new light, and a new part of the structure of the world that we live in, I guess, is revealed to you. When you start to see that progress, then it does solidify. It becomes a true purpose for you to really, that will motivate you to keep on going, even when you feel as though you're seeing little progress. You need to get to that point where what was once just an inclination to pick up a book becomes a solid and more perfected, I guess, embrace of this study of philosophy, so that it becomes something that you truly desire to continue. And when it gets to that point, man, it is wonderful, because then everything that you do relates to what you've been learning. That's certainly one of the things that I've found, right, is that where once, philosophy to me meant sitting down and reading a book about philosophy. Now philosophy is simply the process that I engage in as I do everything in my life. When I'm playing piano, I'm practicing philosophy because I'm thinking about what I'm doing, and I'm thinking, about the wisdom that I can gain and that I can use in that pursuit. When I'm climbing mountains, when I'm coaching my clients, when I'm doing this podcast, everything that I do in my life, I now have that lens through which to look at these things, that is the lens of philosophy and the things that I've learned here. And so that really, when it becomes an all-pervading kind of purpose for you, it's a beautiful thing, and it truly is. It feels as though it is something close to flourishing in life, because you can always call upon that wisdom, because there is no doing philosophy now and doing other things later. It is everything relates to your study of philosophy, which is wisdom. So anyway, after that long rant, we'll dive back in. He says, hence you no longer need to come to me with much talk and protestations. I know that you have made great progress. I understand the feelings which prompt your words. They are not fiend and specious words. Nevertheless, I shall tell you what I think, that at present I have hopes for you, but not yet perfect trust. And I wish that you would adopt the same attitude towards yourself. There is no reason why you should put confidence in yourself too quickly and readily. Examine yourself, scrutinize and observe yourself, but mark before all else whether it is philosophy or merely in life itself that you have made progress. So that last line, he's basically saying, listen, Have you made progress in your understanding of wisdom? Do you have greater wisdom, or are you just getting on with years? Are you just getting the natural slow burn of wisdom that comes with growing old, right? Because they are two very different things. But the way you do that is, you try to avoid getting too confident in yourself at any stage in your journey to discovering wisdom, right? And it is just great advice, right? It's basically saying, don't get too prideful. Don't imagine that you have arrived at this destination before you have sufficient proof that you have, gained that deeper wisdom. And look, Seneca, he's writing this towards the end of his life, and he's writing this to himself. And he's saying this to himself while he's at the end of his life when, surely he would have arrived at this wisdom by now. But no, he's saying, listen, you need to be careful and you need to not get too confident in yourself, because that's only going to stop you from seeing wisdom that you could gain. If you believe that you have already arrived, then you're not going to see the lessons that you need to learn, that you could learn, that would be good for you to learn, right? Because you have that prideful attitude of, you know what, I've done it, I'm here, I'm already wise. And so this is just good advice to remember that on your journey of studying philosophy, of studying wisdom, of gaining wisdom, you need to always have that little thought in your mind that says, maybe I'm not quite there. Maybe I haven't quite arrived yet. And I think that we actually need to mention again, as I always do, Epictetus's great advice for personal growth, which is self-scrutiny, but also self-kindness. I think that those two together, right, are the perfect combination for really making great progress in your own philosophical development, right? Because you're going to scrutinize yourself, and you're going to, not be too prideful, not be too confident in yourself that you have arrived at this destination, right? Because you're watching yourself and you're actually paying attention. But at the same time, you recognize that, listen, you can't spend your entire life picking at every part of yourself, scrutinizing every part of yourself, thinking that you're completely imperfect. And you need to recognize that perfection is, in fact, an imperfect goal. It is an imperfect aim to have in your life, because perfection does not exist, but progress, daily progress, little by little, that is the goal. That is the aim, to continue to chip away at our development so that at the end we can look back and see how far we've come. And, I like what Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, said. He said that, progress is made little by little, but is no little thing in itself. And that is the true progress that we are after, that little bit every single day, that little step forward. And this is probably a good place to end this episode. And I think that the ultimate thing that I want you to take away from this episode is, if you've got that inclination towards studying philosophy, if you've got that good inclination that's drawing you to gaining a deeper wisdom in life, keep on going until it does become a true purpose for you, until you see those differences in your life. Life is, it's an ocean that we are thrown into from birth. And philosophy is the thing that teaches us to swim. Wisdom is learning how to swim. And you don't get there by just sitting there and doing nothing. You have to get in, you have to get dirty, and you have to start practicing and learning this wisdom in your life. And so I'm going to leave it there. I hope that you've taken away a few lessons from this episode, and I'll talk to you next time.